Slides. We're going to have a session later today so we can touch on a couple of issues, a couple of facts on purpose, so we can change from the business to what we do, what we have in the standards in terms of gender, what we do beyond the standards, and a bit actually why we think we're so grateful about the invitation today, and it's because we are in the process of developing a gender strategy for Buitrago, so it's a quite timely moment for us to share our thoughts and also to receive feedback and explore options for collaboration. So our vision is a world in which all producers, men and women, can enjoy secure and sustainable livelihoods, fulfill their potential, and decide on their future. So a couple of figures about where we're reaching. This is data 2010, 1.15 million farmers and workers. We work with more than 900 producer organizations, which in our jargon means small producer organizations and high labor setups. We're active in more than 63 countries, delivering more than 50 million euros in premium. More than 50% of the organizations also hold an organized certificate. And a very important fact that I think also you're going to see through the presentation, producers are co-owners of the system. So they are not only beneficiaries, but actually own the organization, 50% of the organization. We work in a wide range of products, but those are our main products, including, of course, coffee, tea, and cocoa. Some figures about fair trade. Again, this is the fair trade and gender. This is the monitoring and evaluation report that we have. On the upper part, you have the percentage of women in high labor organizations of workers. So you see that in Asia, for example, we're close to 50%. In Latin America, it's 23%. On the lower part, you have the percentage of women belonging to small producer organizations. 13% in Asia, for example, 23% in Latin America. So as you see, this 30% is, let's say, in fair trade, a high figure, if you like. Sorry. And this is about how producers small farmers, have spent the premium. Again, 2010, as you see, gender equity is just these 3 dots. And it's very small, but actually I think what is also not reflected in this chart is that there are many community, education, and health, and other kind of investments that actually also benefit women. So those gender equity are particular programs that are directed to women needs, for example, income generating products. Okay, so a bit going to the standards. This is the classic non-discrimination clause that we have. It's a year 0 global requirement. So if you have an organization entering in fair trade, you have to have you can't discriminate against members, gender being one of the criteria that you can't discriminate. 3 other things we have as a year 3 development criteria. You have to be able to identify minority groups, and gender could be part of one of those minority groups. As year 6, you have to have programs in place related to those groups. And if those are quite closely related to gender. We have one particular standard in case of cotton that is actually in case of women growers, it has to be ensured that payments are given to the women themselves. And we can discuss that later about what's the origin of that. I'm going to come back to this case later. Don't get scared. This is basically just to say this is FLO Cert, which is the certification body that certify against fair trade standards. Is how do they check again? So I just took an example about this standard that says this year 6 requirement that says that you have to have in place programs that improve social and economic positions. Basically, you have a ranking between there's no program and there's a program for all identified disadvantaged groups, including female members. The producers, in average, have to have rank 3, but what this gives is to try to reduce the partiality that auditors may have. Of course, you still have the challenge about the auditors having to be these super persons who know about the environment, producer organizations, strengthening, and gender. In terms, for example, in high labor, we have a quite extensive set of standards in terms of sexual discrimination, and you still have the challenge about how open are going to be women about communicating those issues to male auditors. just to flag a bit of challenges in terms of auditing. And a point here that is very important for us is that we see that fair trade, the part of certification and standards is a very important part of the system, but it's not the only way in which we are aiming to enable change. You have to combine that with other tools, otherwise things are not happening. We could impose, if you like, a membership quota on producer organizations. You're going to get the numbers. You're going to get the membership increasing. That does not mean that actually women are being more empowered or actually accessing benefits from that position. We have heard earlier today, for example, women may go to the meetings, they may just be silent, or they just meet in a corner of the meeting. So actually, just imposing a quota doesn't mean that you're changing things. For that reason, the producer support, which is in the lower part, is very important, as well as partnerships with organizations that can support the organizations in the journey of increasing gender equality. Another important part of fair trade is, for example, the awareness raising, all the work that we do with consumers, networking in terms of the producer organizations and how they regionally try to strengthen themselves and become networks, and on all the advocacy, political work that we do, for example, towards the European Union. Doesn't mean that we do all this in terms of gender, but actually those are the tools that the system has, and those are the tools that we're looking into how these then translate in the gender context. And there's something that, an experience that has happened in the last 5 years and is ongoing, and it's basically work that has taken place in Central America that has been funded by the funders that I have here below. And it's basically, if you see the numbers of the co-ops and in the blue ones, those are the ones that have been involved in developing baselines in terms of gender equality as the first step. Once they have had the baseline, they have engaged, okay, so from here, we know what's the situation, what we can do about it. That has been resulted in changing the bylaws of the organizations, and in some occasions, developing, for example, funds to actually buy land for women, developing strategies, for example, engaging in women's coffee schemes. And this is a multi-year program, so if we're interested in working in gender, we have to understand that this is not a one-shot thing. This is happening now in Central America, and we're quite keen at the central level to try to see how we can scale the experience that we have now in the system. And this is just to show that this is one of the results where you have per organization, you have a baseline or diagnostic, how they call it, and then per country you also have that. And there's now that very rich information about it. So now I just want to share a couple of thoughts on the way forward. We may be aware that actually we started a strategic review a couple of years ago, and actually gender is one of the last issues that we're revising. And what we have put together is a multi-stakeholder group to go through a couple of inputs to try to define the way forward for fair trade. We felt that this has to, from the experience that we had, we felt, well, this can't be standards driven. We have to have the producers on board. So as you were saying, for example, gaining the trust of the communities is not easy, and who's best positioned to do that are the producers themselves with the organization and their networks. It has to be impact-driven and context-sensitive, which is particularly challenging in gender. So I want to start with the consultation with producers. We did 2 workshops, one in Peru in September last year with around 40 producer organizations, and we did one in Ghana with around 30 producers that participated. And we tried something different. Usually in fair trade we have a standards proposal, we go and we consult with producers. In this case, we basically had like a white sheet with some questions, but actually saying, what do you see is the role of fair trade in achieving gender equality? Which is a very different point of start. I just want to share that those pics are, you can see them in the back, but actually you have on the left side, for example, you have someone who thinks that actually there's a woman breaking chains, and they see fair trade as part of that process of breaking the chains. Or you have people who think the upper part, women are being able to sit at the table and have a conversation as equals. Or you will have someone who thinks that actually there's the production, the household, the trading, and actually men and women benefiting and participating equally in the proceedings. So this is just to show me that, I mean, we're active in so many countries that is quite challenging to try to come to with an answer that fits all producers. So also this is why we felt that this has to be from producers going up instead of from us imposing our vision of what is gender equality. Some of the results of the consultation is that producers had very strong views about imposing quotas. In particular, they are really against us saying you have now to have 50% of women as in your membership. They're not against that happening, they're just against us imposing that on them. And actually, if you see, for example, in the experience in Central America, many of those organizations have made those decisions themselves, but it has not been imposed by the external body. The same thing about the leadership positions. If you want to have quotas, in Coca-Cola, for example, you have very strong quotas in terms of all the decision-making bodies. It has been a process themselves, that they have themselves embarked on. Also, in terms of premium use, they don't want to be dictated about what they should be doing. They should be doing with the premium. They want to make those decisions, and they feel that as women have more training, men as well, and things start to change, you're going to see more investment that actually benefit women. This is something that has come up also earlier. It's not only women and men, it's the family, and it's about the intergenerational issue. We see, for example, how supply chain is being at stake, so actually the importance of thinking about the next generation and what is happening with the children of these farmers and workers is key. They don't like to be treated, the women in particular, as a minority group. So they see themselves as equal partners in the production. I found very telling the fact, for example, the person who said before in the video that she was able to actually know that she was working. I mean, she has been doing that, but actually she was not aware of that. So actually just this visibility for themselves, and then therefore it shouldn't be treated as a minority group. This also has been raised, and I just want to share, for example, that in one workshop we had, let's say, 10 men attended in the morning, we end up with 7 or 6. So we do struggle there. It's not only about this is a woman's issue, these men also have to see the benefits of actually engaging in a gender equity agenda. And again, awareness and building capacity is also key. So as part of to try to see what we're doing well, what we're doing bad, we commissioned an institute review. The first thing to say is that there are very little studies that actually have a gender analysis, where actually you have an insight on this black box that is the household relationships. In any case, so we have, for example, yes, fair trade could bring more stable incomes to the families, but actually we don't know how that affects differently men and women. And as the variation depends on context, so it's really difficult to say we have a positive effect or negative, but even in some cases where we have very important changes in terms of income, status, representation of women. For example, in one workshop we had a person that was part of the joint body, and she was saying, I couldn't ever approach my chief, the chief of the region, if I wouldn't be in the joint body. So those are tools by which, through an instrument of the system, some structures have been broken, and actually this person felt now I can talk to the chief, and she was sharing how that changed also the chief's perspective about the importance of education and for health. But it's not surprising that actually these main commodities are export crops and are male dominated. So it's not surprising that actually, but by not doing anything, we may be reinforcing the inequality that exists already in the system, in the different structures. So if the men are continuing to receive the income, then you just reinforce what is already a pattern that exists in the community. We feel that further research is required, and that we want to learn from the information that we receive. This is just to say that we want to be able to understand how the producer standards affect gender, how the price and the premium affect gender, how the pre-financing. We have to be able to. We want to understand that we don't want to have just like an individual look at things. We want to have a holistic view, and also as members of ICOs who are thinking about our theory of change, we also want to factor in a gender angle into it. We're trying, okay, so trying to speed up a bit. So basically, we want to learn from what we have there, the experience in Central America. We have some very successful co-ops that actually have been managed by women. There's very interesting pioneer work in Africa happening, and actually we have one twin trader here who's been involved in this, working with at the household level, so trying to change like the dynamics at the household level. We want to be able to understand better how women are involved in production, how they access benefits, and we want to understand better the impacts that they have in terms of gender, and also learning as a tool. So I just want to, this is more or less the direction that we're going, which is basically strengthening the capacity of the producer networks, and having a stronger role in terms of working with the producer organizations, learning and mainstreaming therapy tools. This means, for example, how we can, how auditors can do better audits, taking into consideration gender issues. Same thing for standards. I'm just going to go to the last one. So basically, this is the challenges that we see. Is that this is a long-term journey. You have cultural norms that are very difficult to challenge. You have leaderships. You may have an excellent leader in an organization that then leaves the organization for no reason, and then suddenly the work then stops. Resources is a clear issue. We need to engage better with men. It's positive that this topic is receiving more and more attention, for example, from the international community, but it has to be looking with care that actually this is not an add-on imposed burden on women. If there's no change in the relationship at the household level, this is going to be expecting that actually the women are going to be the ones who are going to feed the world. It's going to be another burden on women. Mainstreaming is still the tension that if I ask a colleague, so have you considered this in terms of gender? Sure, we're going to open a work stream. And this is not what we want. We want people to actually say, so I have this manifest standard. Does this have an effect in women? And land tenure continues to be an issue. Okay? And Asia. In Asia, for example, we have the networks are not that strong, so we do have a challenge to pursue this approach that is very producer-based.
Thank you very much.